Hey everybody, once again, we're back. I got Daniel in the seat, as always, with us today. Daniel, say hello
Howdy,
to
everybody.
everybody.
How are y'all doing?
We do apologize that Daniel's microphone is not the greatest tonight, so we do apologize about that. But we got a jam-packed show for you all. We're going to talk about 3D slicing and, and talk about, everything about slicers because, well, Daniel loves slicers and he likes to talk about them, so.
I do. I do. It's true. It's true.
Slicers and lead screws are his thing.
I've got a lot of things, though, to be
That's true.
honest. a lot of those.
Well,
Howdy,
hello,
medic.
Vince. How you doing? So we're also going to talk a little bit about Murph because we're both going to be there. Are you going to be there this year?
Hmm. I hope so. I want to see everybody there.
Well, you're going, of course, with Art,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I wonder if all the channel watchers are going to go, like 3D medic and... Well, Country's going to be there, right?
Country's going to be there. I've already
Country's going.
confirmed.
Yeah.
I will be there. Barrett will be there. So the
Yep.
CMP crew will be there. We're being sponsored by Filaments.ca again. Thank you so much, Filaments.ca. You have no idea how much we appreciate it. We also have who else is showing up this year? Joe Telling's going to be there. Barnacle said he was maybe showing up this year. I don't have all contact with Ben Heck, but he was kind of raving online saying that he would probably be there.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so Chapman's coming down. Who else did I see that was
Is
announced?
Chris Riley going?
Chris Riley is actually coming and he's going to be hanging around with us.
Sweet.
Yeah, I
Sweet.
told him I'll have a
Cool.
chair for him. He said he'll be there.
Good.
Who else said that they were coming? Vince said he was coming. 3D Trucker's not able to make it. Unfortunately, he had surgery, so that took out his funds.
All right. What about Minnesota Maker? Was he?
I don't know what's going on with
Oh,
Minnesota Maker.
I could ask him. I'll see. That'd be fun to see him up there. Although it's funny that we live so close to each other, relatively speaking. And then the first time we would ever meet each other would be like down in Indiana, 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, you're in Minnesota. Just see each other in Minnesota.
And we go to Indiana in order to meet each other. That would be kind of funny.
But yeah, no, a lot of stuff is happening this year. As you know, I got the CR10 up and running finally, but not printing.
Not printing, just running.
Running finally, yes. What happened was I was doing some work on it, and I broke the two fan intakes, so the two coolers. The nozzles kind of snapped.
Got it.
So I had to re-glue them back together. Once I had them glued and set, everything's
you got to
working
print
great
another
now.
carriage now?
I'll have to print another carriage probably later in the months or so. So that's a new project.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They always snowball into more projects. So you got some people in the chat now.
Yeah. So we got 3D Make Vince, Miss Glow, and someone called Ozball.
Onsball. It's a good username.
Yeah, Ozball. Thanks for joining us. So let's talk about slicers. Now, you know my feelings about Kira. I like Kira, but Kira is starting to become really kind of freaky looking now. I'm not fond of 4.0, and I think 4.0 really is not good.
Not good?
And they changed everything, and they made it even harder to find stuff in Kira 4.0.
I've heard that from more than just you. I've heard that from other people as well. You're definitely not the only one with that.
Yeah, apparently 4.0 is changing the way that how you can find products and look for certain options that you're looking for. And honestly, yeah, it's still a great program for starters, but I really think we need to look at, maybe it's time to jump ship. Maybe it's time to start saying, okay, Kira, you want to do that? Fine, whatever. Yeah. You can go and do your thing. So I actually downloaded Slick 3R PE edition.
Okay, that's the other thing. There was this big. We can talk about that. There's this big hubbub about how do you pronounce it. You know, Tom made a video about it. I think they're all wrong. All of you guys are wrong. Anyway,
Okay, well, what do you call it then?
I say slice 3R because if
Slice
you're
3R. Okay.
that way, it sounds like slicer, but it's also pronounced differently than just slicer. So you know whether you're talking about a slicer or the slice 3R. If you encounter the phrase or the series of letters SLIC with something dangling after it, following English rules, generally you would pronounce that C with an S sound, a sibilance. So you would say slice or sliss, and then the rest gets funky, but you would say 3R, right? So it would be slice 3R.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my take on it. I'm a little bit of a language nerd, but that's just my take on it.
Okay, now I've talked to 3D Printing Llama. 3D Printing Llama is really high on Idea Maker. Have you actually looked at it yet or no?
I've looked at it, but I have not actually downloaded it myself. So
What do you think about E3D also getting into the slicer um, pool of weirdness?
um, that's neat. I'm excited to see them coming into the game, and I like some of um, the features and the layout. I think it makes a lot of sense to people who come to 3D printing from the CNC milling world. If you're familiar with like CAM and stuff, you'll probably appreciate PathIO. How do you think that's pronounced? I haven't heard people pronounce it. PathIO, PathIO,
I've heard it be calling
PathIO.
Pathio. I've heard it called Path.io. I've heard people calling it Path.io. No one knows the
I'm
name.
sure we'll hear about it at MRRF. There'll be probably tons of talk about it, but
Well,
I'm figuring that
I'll ask the guys at E3D. What do you
yeah,
guys call your
I'll just
slicer?
right from the horse's mouth, right?
Yeah.
Um, I figure after MRRF, they'll probably have a whole bunch of ideas for, oh, do this, do that, change this, tweak that. You know, people will be talking to them, and I'll figure on giving it a couple weeks after that before I download whatever the latest version is. I just haven't had time to play with it, and I figure after MRRF would be a good time.
Yeah. Okay. So we got some more people in here. So we got TK Prince, TK3D. We have the great and always talented, and I always thank him for coming in, Chris Riley. We have also, let's see, Papa Top. I don't think you've ever been on my show before. Thanks for coming in, buddy. I've talked to you before. And also Rover. Thanks for coming in, buddy. Always love it when our mods come in. So,
We
now
have
that
some
we've
comments
done all
in here
that,
about more slicers. Cure on the Moai. Yeah, that's a good point. We're always talking about this from an FDM perspective, but a lot of people are using resin printers and
oh, SLA?
yeah, specifically SLA, where you've got tool pathing. It's not LCD masked. You've actually got tool pathing, and when you're doing that, you need a slicer because you're generating a tool path for the laser. Um, I suppose Cure is a pretty good one for that. I personally don't really like the way that Cure just assumes your nozzle size and your extrusion width are going to be the same. I get a lot better results when extrusion width is not the same as the nozzle size. But when you're dealing with SLA and a fundamentally different set of physical processes, it makes sense to slice it with that in mind because your spot size is just your spot size. I mean, you don't have a nozzle and an extrusion, which are different. Your spot
Yeah.
size is your spot size. So I think Cura's tool pathing is pretty good for the Moai and other SLA printers.
Now I'm wondering if Path.io was designed in that respect, and that's why they're coming out with their own slicer. It's going to be more aimed at May resin. Who knows?
It's
Because
possible. I would
the
expect them
reason,
to incorporate those. Although so far, I'll give it this caveat: they've made their millions on FDM. So think about what E3D has done. They've done hot ends, now they've done extruders, and then lately they moved into machines or a motion system designed to use more of their hot ends and extruders. They really haven't set much of a foray into resin printing of any kind yet, but I would expect them to eventually, because with their, what was it, like TCT hardware award or something like that, whatever it was that they got. OEM hardware supplier or something, something, something for desktop manufacturing. They got some award last year. They're still riding pretty high from that, and I think it's possible that they might branch out in the near future. I don't know. It would be cool. They certainly have the money and the brains to pull it off.
Yeah. I'm wondering though, and I'm just throwing this out in the open. Now that we're talking about resin printers and everything else with, and someone mentioned S3D. Now, I happen to have a hate for S for simplified 3D and when their little bit of their game playing that they're doing now, charging everybody again for their software. And I know that some companies that use printers, they only work with simplified 3D because simplified 3D built their slicing program into their software, their hardware.
Hmm. Yeah,
Printers like
that was a
the
pretty divisive move. Yeah.
yeah, like Fusion 3. Like I looked at the Fusion 4. Fusion, I think it's called the Fusion 4 S410. Just uses
S410.
simplified 3D. It doesn't like any other slicer. I'm just thinking to myself, if simplified 3D is going to go in this path where they're going to recharge you money to download a new version, what is buggy about the last one? And also on top of it, I have another question is how many holes are you leaving open in my system if I have to download this new update?
Sure,
But
sure.
I can't because I have to pay more money into it.
I see, I see.
People contacting you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at the S3D and the Fusion 3 um, agreement sort of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I've never really had a particular love for S3D. In my mind, the only real benefit that it's consistently had is supports. Pre-tuned profiles to me are not a thing because I tune everything for every print. It's like I never download a profile ever for any machine. I will never download somebody else's pre-made profile. I make them all myself. I don't need to do that. So that's a uh, what's the word? Non-issue for me. But as far as supports go, yeah, it's largely been uh, the community's perception that S3D has the best support material options. But frankly, they've been left behind in most other ways by some slicer or another. Now, people will say, oh, S3D saves me time on this or that. Or, okay, I get it. But my main beef with them, aside from the cost, which like Mad Monkey says, from an industrial standpoint, software costs like this, $150 is nothing. I mean, that's chump change. You find that in the couch. So it's as just a maker with a lower budget, for me, yeah, I could pony that up if I wanted to. It wouldn't be pleasant, but like I could. That's a decent chunk of a new machine or a whole lot of filament, right? But my beef is that I just don't like the way it's laid out. I don't like how the settings are arranged, and the ones that I need frequently are not available in the same places, and the ones I need to tweak in certain places that, in my mind, should be logically connected aren't in S3D. They're
Yeah.
not
So
bundled the logical way to me, and I just, the way I approach printing is not the way that S3D is designed.
yeah. So we have a question here. This from Pop Top. He was saying, Ron, I haven't logged into my my 150 S3D program for some time now, and you're saying to me to update I have to pay again? That's basically what's happening right now. Soon they're gonna put it behind a paywall, so your next update has to be has to come from S. When you go
Yeah.
to update your S3D account, you have to pay money to get the next update.
Yeah, there's no details about when yet or exactly what new features are going to be in it, but supposedly the reason for the new the paywall to the next update is that it's going to be a feature-rich update. Now, I don't know if they intend to do more bug fixes or just tweaks, but I think what's going to happen is sort of a branch where you've got this basic version that we've got now with all the features that everybody knows so far, and then a set of new and advanced features that will be in the software going forward, that are apparently advanced enough that the S3D team thinks they're worth an extra dose of money. We'll see.
Yeah, but they've been promising this for the last couple of updates, and they've brought nothing to the table.
Yeah. People were expecting some pretty large fundamental new features, right? I mean, think of all
Well,
the advances that Cura has had in the past
they dropped
year or
hints
two.
saying that they were putting this
It's
in.
crazy.
This is going to be in the next update. This is going to be in the next update. And then they said none of it.
Yeah,
I was like, holy crap. Talk about good move, S3D.
yeah, yeah. The amount of money is also kind of up in the air. I've heard it'll be about $50. That's just what I've heard through the grapevine. No idea if that's true or not. Don't quote me on it. That's about what I would expect, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was seeing that a lot about that happening too, Robert, as you mentioned there. Uh, which I love his line. I love this is that he's saying, actually, I have not used S3D lately. Last update won't run without crashing when I try to save it to an SD card. I've heard of people having slicings just go poof.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of the nature of things when you have a centralized team working on it. Um, Stuff gets done at their pace, right? Versus when something is community driven, yeah, it might be messier, but there are a lot more brains working on it all at once. So they tend to be more responsive to bug fixes and things when it's a distributed, an open source project, um, than when it's a single small core team of developers who is kind of only in it for the money.
Yeah.
If it's a passion project for people and it's open source, you have a lot of really smart developers on it. Usually, some of them can find a little bit of time here or there, right? And they all love to do it, so bugs get fixed quickly. But,
Yeah. So let me ask the crowd out here who still uses Cura? Honestly, I just want to know just sleight of hands right now in this chat. I know I'm going to see that in the comments too, guys. So I'm looking forward to, if you guys didn't catch us live, please leave a comment down below. We'd like to get an idea of how many people are still using Cura. And do you feel that 4.0 is going maybe forcing you to maybe think about changing to say something else?
also, if you don't use Cura currently, um, yeah, say why. Johnny Capo has a good answer. Cura
Yeah, it
UI
drives
makes
me
me crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like that all the settings are hidden. I mean,
That's the one thing I really hate about Cura is how many
it's like,
settings are
give me all the
hidden.
settings. I want all of them, just by default, please. Just everything. I can scroll through pages and pages. That's fine. I just need all of them there in case I need them.
Well, Mad Monkey, you're in luck because we're going to be talking about Slice 3R. Let me just pull it up here for you guys.
Yeah. Idea Maker 75%, Cura 25%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I
I
mean,
found it harder to tune Cura supports than like Slice 3R. I found it a little easier to tune those supports for some reason. I don't know. Um, but then again, I've seen some really, really good supports come out of Cura. Maybe a couple versions ago, I've seen probably the best supports that I've
Cura
ever seen a
has
picture
nice
of
tree
were from
supports.
Cura. So, yeah.
I love their tree supports. That's the best thing in Cura.
Now, for printers like the Moai, that really comes in handy because you don't want to spend a lot of resin um, invested into these big, blocky, rectangular supports, right? Like everybody else likes to generate. No, tree supports are what you want to use if you're doing SLA because that stuff's expensive, and it's really fine and stable to do tree supports. So
Yeah, I don't know if my screen switched. No, it didn't. Screen one. Sure. There we
Slice
go.
Drawer feels like Windows 95 to me. Llama says, yeah, yeah, it does kind of look. It looks like Windows 95, just the way things are laid out. But it's very like deterministic. I like how it's organized. Um,
Yeah.
but it is definitely a
Now,
antique, no frills.
yeah.
Nothing fancy about that interface.
let's put one thing on the table. I'm going to throw this out, and I got my screen up right now so you guys can have a look at Slicer Prusa Edition. Slice 3R Prusa Edition is just as good as Slicer whatever version you want to use, but their Cura version it doesn't mean that this version you only have to have a Prusa. You can set it up for any printer whatsoever. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yep, yep. And there are a couple nice features with the Prusa edition. Generally, they get the Prusa specific features first. Like there are some that I don't care for, like profile inheritance. I didn't need that. There are some that I don't use. Like there are some purge things and some filament switching parameters that are used if you have a multi-maker, or sorry, multi-extrusion unit, MMU. But if you have those Prusa features, it can be nice. I don't use those, but there are a couple other things in the Prusa edition of Slice 3R that actually are pretty handy. Like I personally really like the way that it interfaces with Repetier Host. The Repetier Host 2.0 version has some nifty integration with variable layer heights. You can set your layer heights to change continuously, and Slice 3R Prusa edition has your maximum and minimum parameters, like how low can your layer height go, how high can it go, some nifty features like that that do that, a bunch of other streamlines, and I found it to be very, very, very stable. Now, granted, I haven't tested it on a whole lot of machines. My use case is pretty narrow, my workflow is pretty consistent, so you know, other people might have bugs. As always, your mileage may vary, but I personally find it to be very, very stable.
So, since we just had a whole bunch of other people jump on, 3D Llama, hello. Minnesota Maker, hello. Mad Monkey, I don't know if I said hello to you beforehand. If I haven't, I'm saying hello now, in case I forgot. So to everybody that's here, if you haven't signed up for, for the show and you're interested in what we're doing, remember, hit the subscribe button down below. But let's look at this one here. So I just pulled up a Benchy just so there's something on the platform so we can have a look at this here. What are some of the features that people may find when they're adding their own printer? Would they go to just printer settings and go to my settings, or would you rather them go with a system preference? They would set this up for themselves, let's just say.
Yeah, I would do my settings, and then the very first thing I do is save, or on the left side. I would save this. No, not under there. Go into the here. Click out of that. Go into the print settings because you're in the plater right now. Yeah. Now here's where you can like save my settings. This that.
Okay. So right now I got this kind of set up for the Ender 3. I still got to fiddle around with my attractions and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a little bit of stringing. But advanced options, like this is where we can really kind of goof up or really make a print.
Yeah, this is what makes or breaks your print quality right here. Also gives you a ton of flexibility if you're doing, say, small models with thin details, and you're having trouble getting things to be integral multiples of the extrusion width. You can tweak that to no end in this. Also, the gap fill. Slice 3R tends to be pretty good with that.
Okay, cool. So, and it's not that hard to set up. I would say probably you just go from your first page, start at the first one, layer height 0.3, or you can set it for 0.2.
Yeah.
Now, what is the like first layer height?
0.2. Yeah. So, okay. Here's something else that's really interesting. The default values in Slice 3R haven't changed in like years. I mean, they've been the same like ever since I began printing. This was when people were using like 0.35 millimeter nozzles, and for a little while there was this conventional wisdom that said you wanted to use a first layer height equivalent to your nozzle diameter. I don't know where that came from or who started that, but that's dumb. Don't do that. So like they're still using that 0.35 millimeter first layer height, I would never do that on anything shy of like a 0.5 millimeter nozzle. You know, I wouldn't use a layer height that thick for the first. So I
So
would
what
just
would you
set,
say? Your first layer height would be 2?
yeah, I do 0.2 and 0.2,
Now, would
three
you want to do
perimeters.
2.4, depending on the what type of screw you're using?
Yeah, but for ease of tuning and ease of setting up your printer and setting up the slicer profiles, I like to make the first layer height equal to the main layer height, if possible, unless there's some other, you know, extenuating circumstances going on with the print, other
Okay,
reasons to not have it.
this is the one thing I don't understand: is perimeters. What are they exactly
Well,
in a
that's the
print?
number of loops that it makes around the outside. The number of John, do you know what that's called in Kira?
Well, it depends if you change it from what is it, shell width, or you
Walls,
usually have
yeah,
to like set, yes, like a
yeah,
wall width in
wall
Cura,
thickness, and
which is
yeah,
probably like my main gripe with it.
Kira likes to think of it with, or in terms of the absolute thickness, and
Okay,
I
yeah, now
don't
I
think
understand.
printers are really to that stage. We should be thinking in terms of tool paths, not in terms of outcome. Um, so I like setting manually the number of actual, you know, loops that it's going to do, instead of just trying to multiply it out and
Absolutely.
have the end thickness, you know.
Okay, that makes sense then. I
Yeah,
understand what top and bottom is.
yeah, those are a little low. I do no less than 4 or 5.
Yeah. Um, and a lot of this I just kept on like extra perimeters if needed. I check marked. Detect thin walls. I check marked,
Yep,
and I also kept
bridging perimeters good.
bridging
Yeah,
on.
seam position aligned is good when starting out. External perimeters first. Don't click that. Okay, this is good. Oh yeah, so get your layer or your solid layers top and bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, set those to like 5.
Really? Why
Mm-hmm.
not 3?
Well, if you're using, let's say you're using a 0.2 millimeter layer height, um, and you're using only 3 top and bottom, that's only 0.6 millimeters. That's thin. That's really thin. That's
I've been okay with
that's
3.
nothing.
You
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. I get a lot better results with 4 minimum, or 5 if I'm doing something structural.
Okay.
So
Or
I
full
stop.
millimeter.
Yeah.
So whatever the layer
Infill.
height is,
Go ahead.
like if it's a 0.2 layer height, I shoot for 5 to get to a millimeter,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
Who's doing Murph? We're all doing Murph. Hey, John. John, are you going to Murph? You came in a little after we talked about this.
No,
Oh, bummer.
no, too
Yeah, I
far
want
for
him.
me.
I wanted
Yeah,
him to
it
come.
is quite a drive.
You know, hopefully he can come to Earth instead.
Oh, I'll definitely be at Earth.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
we'll definitely, hopefully, have a table up and running. I
yeah.
need to
I'll
go
be
and get my.
driving.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show up for Earth right now, only because my passport expired recently. I have enough
Oh
time to go
no.
to the States, but I have to go and get another passport if I want to go to Earth. So
We'll do that. You got to go to Earth. You got to do it.
You got
I
to do
know,
it, man.
I know, I know, I
Got to
know.
do it.
So infill, 20% is what I usually stick with.
Yeah, that's
Now,
a decent amount.
okay. What about the fill patterns? Which one do you like better? Because they
Okay,
go to reach stars.
I have some strong thoughts on this. Uh, Not really a hack, but a technique that I found that makes really good solid infill that doesn't string, doesn't uh, break away from the edges, and is crush resistant as well. Um, so the fill pattern is rectilinear, same as top and bottom.
But I think we can change rectilinear to any other format.
Yeah, top and bottom could be anything, but I find that rectilinear makes it easiest to stick to the bed, and also makes it a little bit easier for the top to get a specific surface finish trick that I like to do. But the fill pattern for the body, stars. Fast hex can be good if, well, under certain circumstances, but this other technique that I'm about to show you guys has um, in my testing, less print time and material invested per crush strength. So yeah, rectilinear right at the top there.
Rectilinear again?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, John, your video looks a little choppy to me.
Yeah, this video's a little laggy.
All right. I'll drop my quality down.
Sure.
So, what about combined infill every one layer?
Yep, one layer. So this just means for every layer, it does one layer of infill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why they make that on there, you know?
Hardly anybody uses it. Only infill when needed. I don't mess with that. It's cool in theory, but yeah.
I find that it like just spits a little bit of filament all over my print in the inside, like in certain spots without any real
rhyme or reason.
It's kind of weird.
It would be neat if they threw some more development into it, but yeah.
Now, what about solid infill? Every.
I don't use that. I think Cure has something like that, or S3D. What do they call it? A diaphragm or something? I don't know. Haven't really used it. Don't see a need. One thing I would change, the solid infill threshold area. I changed that down to like 10. Hey guys, I'm not on YouTube. I just do shows with these guys, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, whatever, at Techie Fiddler. Like, here, I'll type it out.
Yeah, I just.
You can find me there on most social media.
Yeah, he's just hired. That's all.
Yeah. See that only retract when crossing perimeters? Uncheck that. You don't want that. Just retract every time. Keeps things consistent. Consistent behavior is good behavior.
Okay. So going on the next one.
Unless you're printing with flex, and then totally check that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I got a rule right here. Gonna go back. Sorry guys, I just got on present. Just want to show you guys. Small rule of I think about maybe 20 or 30 length of Ninja Flex.
Nice.
I don't know what
I almost bought a bunch of that during Printed Solid's recent sale. They had some really good deals on that Black Friday too.
Well, I made a phone call. I went over to visit my guys over at filaments.ca, and they're like, I'm like, do you guys have any samples of Ninja Flex or any type of TPU? Because I want to start playing around with it. This was before my extruder started going weirdy on the Ender 3, which is being replaced. Going for a full Ender replacing of everything. I don't know what it is with the Ender 3, but they like to fail fast. I'm not the only one with this issue. And still no one's figured it out yet. I'm thinking mine's a extruder. It could be different for everyone though.
Yeah, cheap parts, low quality control.
Yeah.
You know, you get what you pay for.
But when I was talking with them, and they said, yeah, we got Ninja Flex here. Boom. Hand me that roll. So it's like, yay. What are you doing with your mic? You just got right into it. Hey.
You guys watch The Office at all?
Only
Can't say I have. Hey, Hack Monkey. How you doing, buddy?
Totally lost time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So my CR10's back up and running. Do you guys see it?
Good,
in the picture?
Yeah, we can see it in the bottom there of the video.
Yep. It's up and running. I got a V6 on it. I've got a new cooler. I've got a magnetic build plate, and I put the insulation on the bottom of it as well. So I insulated the whole bottom of it.
Good. What kind of insulation do you have? How much weight does it add? Just curious.
It's like a foam with a Mylar backing on it. I don't even know if it does anything. It was like under $1 on AliExpress. So I just said, well, it can't hurt.
Yeah. And blocking against radiative heat transfer, no, that helps. That does help.
Very
Even if
little
it only
weight
helps a
added,
little.
though.
It'll help.
Plus, the magnetic build plate is so much lighter than the glass that I had on there that I think that I saved a little weight on that.
Good, good.
Yeah, speaking of Hack Monkey, I still have your coin. See,
I should make a
their
coin before
coin
Earth.
is kind of neat because both sides has their picture on,
That is really
has their logo
cool.
on it.
Oh, good.
And if you notice, it's not like a normal maker coin. It has like these almost like saw ridges almost in it.
That's cool.
That's
What
Which
super
is
cool.
orientation
something
is
I
that.
that
like that
printed?
a lot.
Pardon me?
Show that again. How is that printed? What orientation is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I think he printed this
Is it
on flat
assembled?
on his bed, but this was
Multicolored?
done on a Prusa
That's
on
cool.
K3.
That's very cool.
It's a nice. It's a nice print, honestly. Yeah, no. That's what kind of inspired this kind of idea. Logo on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Just working on the upgraded version for this year. That's cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to
bring
see
that.
it.
I'm excited to see what that is.
Yeah.
I should make one.
Are you going with art again? Are you guys all coming for Earth?
Yeah, we're coming for MRRF Art 3. That's Additive Research Technologies. We're going to be there. We missed out on like bringing the big stuff, but we'll be bringing some smaller projects.
Cool.
Is Jacob bringing his book again? The final redone?
The what?
I know Daniel and Jacob and who was with us at Earth. They were still finishing up that feel like the blind directory.
yeah,
Are they
yeah.
going to have that again this year?
Possibly. I'll have to ask him to see if he wants to bring that along again.
Yeah, because I'd like to see the final product because I know they finally finished it.
If nothing else, maybe we could share some renders and pictures.
Yeah. So, Hack Monkey, thanks for coming in. Ben E, thank you so much for coming in. As always, we're all having fun here. We're all talking about Earth and we're all talking about slicers. So, let's get back into slicer talk, shall we?
Oh yeah, sorry, I derailed us. I like to do that. That's my whole job on the show is to derail us.
That's why I brought you in here, so you can derail us. Skirts and brims. Now, this is where I have a little bit of a hatred for. I hate skirts, but I understand
Me
the
too.
reason for them. I understand why we need brims. What's your
Brims,
thoughts about?
yes, but skirts are unnecessary if you just do a purge line. You just don't need a skirt. It's
Well, I'll do one caveat to that. One of the printers I'm working with right now is a little bit flimsy on the Z-axis, and just to double check the level before every print, I tend to do like one skirt that's offset a little bit more, and if all of that sticks, then I know that within that the deviation is going to be even less, so I know that's going to stick too. So I use a skirt and a brim, like one skirt line and two brim lines, and then just peel that all off after I'm done. If it's big, I don't even use a brim. I'll just use like one or two skirts, and that way there's less to peel off when you're done. You don't need to go around and trim the brim off. But if the objects have pretty small bases, just to make sure that they've got enough footprint to really stick to the bed, yeah, I'll use a brim with it. And then most of the priming gets done during the brim,
Yeah, I've only used a brim only when I had a print that I wasn't sure was going to stick to the bed properly.
yeah, that's a good reason to use one.
Yeah, like if I'm going to do a print with supports, and I know that I know that it's being printed like on an angle or whatever, then I will turn on brim, because I find that holds the supports in place and the supports don't get knocked off.
Yes, yeah, brims and supports. That's a match made in heaven right there. Because you can have supports that are very delicate and might reach very high. So that can really help anchor them in place. Let's go back to the slicer settings there.
Sure. Which one do you want me to go into?
Yeah, loops, minimum distance from object. I do like 1 millimeter. You don't need to. Also, skirt height
distance from
1.
object is set for 6.
Yeah, change that to like 1 millimeter. It doesn't need to be offset very far.
Okay.
The other thing I would change is the minimum filament extrusion length. This is an awesome feature. Awesome. So here's the deal. If you've got a typical hot end with a melt zone that's like 10 millimeters long, say, give or take, you might enter like say 12 for that number. Now what this does is, even though you have your loops set to only 1, it'll make sure, by adding extra loops if necessary, that the entire melt zone will get purged before your print starts.
Oh,
So if you've got some
idea.
stale filament sitting in your hot end and it might have an air bubble in there, or some of it is drained out and there's a little, void. Suppose you're printing something small, instead of just blindly doing 1 loop and not even finishing a full purge, it'll do 2 or 3 or however many it needs just to get it fully purged through. And as soon as it's done, then it finishes adding purge lines and it goes to the print. Now you can set your loops to 1, and that way you save a lot of time. If it's a big print with a big footprint, it'll only do 1 loop around. It doesn't have to do multiples. So using minimum loops of 1 combined with a minimum filament extrusion length that's sufficient for your printer means that it'll only purge the minimum amount necessary and no more. So,
well, that's handy.
Yeah, it's a great feature. So
but I usually
like
purge my nozzle. I'm usually the type that will purge the nozzle even before printing. So
yeah, sometimes I do that too. But
so
this lets you get a little lazy because it ensures that you don't actually have to do that. It'll make sure that it's purged.
Okay, so I can set that for like 10, 20, depending on the type of print, right?
Yeah, depending on how big your melt zone is. If you've got a volcano, you'll set it to like 20 or something. I don't know, 24.
Okay, so I got a V6, so that'll
set it to
probably
like 12 millimeters,
12?
maybe. Yeah, something like that. If you have a V6 light, it would be like 10 millimeters. A V6 might be like 12. A volcano is like 20 or 24 or something.
Jesus, that much, eh?
Yeah. I wonder how much you would need to purge for a super volcano. You've seen those,
better.
Right? The heat blocks are
how
like...
about if you had to print daddy, how much you would have to purge?
Yeah. Purge forever. They're just pouring filament in there. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, so I would stick it, like 10 or something.
Okay, 10 there.
All right, support material.
Now we get.
Here's a whole bunch to do in here. Auto-generate supports, you could keep that on for now because it'll gray out a whole bunch of settings.
Okay.
Sorry, generate support material. Turn that on. Now overhang threshold. If you wanna do this like the clever way, you could set your overhang threshold to whatever you specifically find needs it.
Oh, it's still graded out, so
yeah,
you
gotta click both of those.
Oh, really? To do that? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, overhang threshold. Generally, with the settings I'll give you, you can get away with like 50 degrees. That's from vertical. 40 degrees from horizontal.
50? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking maybe 45 might be where you wanted it at, but that's interesting.
Generally, you can do better than that. I'll explain.
Okay.
Enforce support for the first. Yeah, generally you don't need that. Although there are some prints where that can be a really handy tool to have in your back pocket. If you're doing something that has a lot of funky overhangs right at the base, and then after that it's all clean and clear, you can use that to your advantage. Sometimes you'll see that on prints that have like fillets underhanging the very bottom side, especially really shallow fillets. Maybe you're printing a ball. You only have a tiny little bit touching the plate, and then you've got a whole bunch that curves up. You could use that to enforce that up to a certain point is supported around the entire sphere, just to double make sure.
How come you just came up with something in Hello Theory Deluxe? He says, skirt is also critical on my FL Sun QQ-S Delta. It oozes like made. It can
oozes like mad. It can ooze a couple millimeters just dropping down the 300 millimeters to the plate. Yeah. If you've got a Bowden printer and your Bowden tube changes position pretty dramatically from top to bottom, that can kind of change, like by changing the bend radius of things, you can effectively accidentally be feeding a little bit of filament. So
yeah, and that was Dale caught that for me. Sorry about that. I'm looking at made what?
Yeah, on a Delta, I think I would have to use a skirt just because it would be really difficult to do a purge line properly on a Delta, like out of the way.
Yeah, you'd want like a purge circle or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know how you do that.
On the very edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't have a Delta in my collection. I know that looking at this makes it look like I'm a gamer. And yes, I was a gamer back in the day. I still do
I
play
have a
video
He
terrible
took
games.
an arrow to
Delta.
the knee. Yeah,
Huh?
I have a really terrible Delta
he does. It's
that I
terrible.
never use.
Oh, you should use it all the time and bring it to Earth and have us all try to fix it.
Yeah, I actually thought about that because I was thinking about getting a table, and I was gonna be like, put a sign up that says, "Help me fix this piece of crap." It's a challenge.
Oh, you'd be surprised how many people will take you up on the challenge. You probably end up
Oof.
more with with some type of Frankenstein Delta than you might
Yeah.
expect. Oh, I got a 3D printed part. Oh, yeah, you need to print this part. I'll give it to someone else to print for you. Here.
Right there. It's
Also, you
shot.
got all these weird color prints and everything else.
See
One
that?
thing I have been working with, I've been playing around with this stupid print format, which is taking the infills and using them as coasters.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Only problem is Kira has that nice little symbol. The rest of them are all. But we're getting ourselves off topic. Raft layer.
Oh, I forgot to put this out.
Put what out?
That we're casting right now. I didn't put it on any of my groups or anything.
Oh. Here I'm
You could
hoping
throw that out
you
there and see.
push a note there.
See if anybody hops on.
Okay. So raft layers.
Yeah, keep that off. This is where you do rafts. Now, Slice 3R does some nice integration between raft and supports. I like how those work, and I like that they're on the same page. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Rafts and supports to me are kind of the same class of stuff, so it makes sense to put them on the same page right next to each other. Yeah, but really, gosh, I haven't used a raft in like. I can't even remember how long. Like, you know,
Last
not
time I
on
used
printers
a
with heated beds
raft.
anyway.
Last time I used a raft was when I was printing my I was printing the Pet Fang, and someone said don't print the Pet Fang, go with this instead. And I already printed that with a raft on it because everybody said, yeah, their Pet Fangs lifted off the bed for some strange reason.
Has to do with some shrinkage forces
Yeah.
it generates, but due to the geometry. Okay, let's go back there. There's a couple things I want to tweak in supports. You won't probably
Yep,
need supports
still
for
have it
much,
open.
but when you do, you'll want these things tweaked. 0.2 millimeters is generally a good distance for the Z. So that's the amount of droop. That's one layer's worth, right? Generally, that's a good starting distance. Sheath around the supports. That can be useful, but I don't usually use it because it adds print time and weight. So I don't use that. Also, the pattern spacing, yeah, like 2.5 is fine. Pattern angle, 0 is good. Interface layers, 3 is a little steep. You can get away with just 2, is just fine. Interface pattern spacing. Now here's something I would change. I would actually throw a little bit of interface spacing in there, like 0.1 millimeters or so. Just
Okay.
Just
Any
cause.
reason for that?
There are some reasons. One of the ones is that it can make it a little bit more tolerant of it's hard to explain. We'll get back to that. I have to think about how to explain this.
Okay. I'm just replying to someone here.
Or point one, not one.
Woo!
Need some clarification from someone who asked me a question. What about interface loops?
I
I'll bring that back up.
sometimes use that, sometimes not. It's not too helpful.
Okay.
Interface pattern spacing will be 0.1, not 1.
Oh, it's supposed to be 0.1?
Yep. Okay, so I found a way to explain it. It's just a little bit more forgiving and flexible when you're dealing with some complex geometries. It makes supports that can be peeled out in bits and pieces and tend to fragment more easily and come out on their own instead of coming out as one big chunk. And if it's one big chunk, you have to pry really hard, right? I like them when they break up a little more easily. And when you've got, say, complex supports around like a character with an outstretched arm, like a D&D miniature, that makes it a little easier to break up. Now, if you're dealing with something like just a mechanical part with one big overhang sticking out, like maybe you're printing an architecture model and it's got a gazebo with a little deck that cantilevers out into space, whatever. Yeah, then loops actually can be a pretty neat thing because the whole support will come off in one brick. It just pops off because those bind it together. But generally, for the stuff I'm doing, I don't tend to use them. Now, XY separation between object and its support, that's calculated as a percentage over the extrusion width. Don't do that. Just get right in there, get, you know, elbow deep in the math. Just use the extrusion width itself. Say 0.2 or 0.25 or something like that. That'll be in millimeters. That'll make it easier to tweak it later.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just answering a question here.
Yeah. So I would change XY separation to 0.25 or something like that.
Okay, so you want me to change that?
Instead of a percentage.
Okay, so...
And
2.5?
Or 0.25.
Okay, 0.25, sorry. There we go, 0.25.
Don't support bridges is a nice feature. I keep that on. Also, depending on the settings you have tweaked, synchronizing with your object layers is cool, although it's not always an option. Sometimes it's grayed out. So.
Yeah, so let me just clarify something, guys, before everybody gets hurt. What I meant by Benny Rally, he said, I know about 90% of you guys. Stuff like Hack Monkey, I've only met you like once or twice, chat with you, you're in that list. But there are some people I don't know that are in the chat also really well. Like, let's see here, P3D, I don't think I've met him yet. 3DPA, I don't think I met you. TK I've talked to many times. I've talked to Papa Top once in a while. Robert Vanilli, I don't know him. I don't know you, and I do apologize. We should chat a little bit more. You know, and start knowing all you and knowing all the new people that came in here that I'm not really familiar with. Oddsball, I have talked to you a few times. I think once or twice you've been on my feed, so it's been nice. I don't know you really well, but I do know who you are. In that sense, it's like I know 90% of you guys. I just haven't met you in person to add it, to make it say I know you 100%. So I do apologize to everyone.
If you guys all come to MRRF, Midwest Rep Rap Festival, then we can meet you in person.
Exactly.
So, be there or be square. Hey, look at this. I just got a new subscriber. Yeah, except for you. Because
you got a new what?
And you have a long way to drive.
You got new.
I could fly.
People?
Yeah, I just got a new Twitter follower.
Who?
Hey, do you guys want to see a new toy real quick?
Sure. What you got?
I still haven't used it. Can you see the extra
like
camera I've got here? It is a vinyl cutter.
Oh, wow.
That's exciting.
Maybe I should have you do us. Maybe I should ask you to make a whole bunch of vinyl cuts for the CMP logo.
Yeah, as soon as I learn how to use it. I still haven't used it. Had it since Christmas.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, right. Ben, you're not that far away. You're just out in Texas. It shouldn't. What would be like 2 hours, I guess? Sorry. From Texas to
Indiana? That's quite a ways.
That's about maybe 2-day drive, maybe?
Oh, yeah, just 2 days. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Someone wants to know if you have a circuit, if that's a circuit or not.
Or cricket. How do they pronounce that? Is it
cameo.
Cry-cut? Cricket? Yeah. It's a cameo. A lot of people start on a cameo.
Yeah, cameo is a good. I've played around with it too myself. Yeah, catch a ride with Brian Vines. There you go. Okay, getting back to topics here. So we got that one done. Let's go to the next one. Speed. This is where I know Daniel loves talking about speed.
Oh, yes. But I'm not going to get into that until after the Advanced tab. And there's a good reason for this. So,
Okay.
yep.
So you want me to go
Speeds
into
will
the
come
advanced tab? Okay.
Yep. Actually hit multiple extruders first just so you can preview what's in there. That's not something you're going to need here. But this is what you use if you have like a tool head swap or IDEX or something like that, and you've actually
What
got
about a dual
multiple
nozzle?
nozzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got a Chimera, something like that, you can do that here. Also, you can have like virtual ones here for mixes if you have a mixing nozzle.
Yeah, like our friend Ben has.
Yes, yep, like him. That's how he does it.
Yep. Advanced?
All right, advanced.
You want me to go into?
Extrusion widths. Now this is where Slice Rio really shines. It's really good at extrusion widths. So again, these settings, like these are the defaults from like 4 years ago, and none of them are best practices. So all right. So let's see. What type of machine are you going to be using this on? Does it have a flat nose E3D nozzle now, or is it still pointed like it was before?
It's going to be using a. This is going to be used on the Ender 3 right now.
On the Ender 3?
Yes.
And the Ender 3 has a pointy nozzle?
I believe it does, yes.
Okay. So go into default extrusion width and change that to 0.45. Say.
Okay.
First layer, change that to like 0.5. That extra little bit of width will give you an extra little bit of leeway when you're, crunching down that first layer. Perimeters. 0.45 is good. External perimeters, 0.45 is also good there. Infill. You're not going to do a 0.45 here. Infill is going to be like 0.75 to 0.8. And that sounds insane, right? Why on earth would you pump that much of a extrusion width through a 0.4 nozzle?
I may know. Because the thicker the infill, the stronger the support will be, right?
Yep. But, hold on. If you were to take a model printed with a setting, crack it open, grab a caliper, and actually measure one of the infill traces, it would actually come out more like 0.5.
Really?
Why is that? Well, here's why. The infill type that you have selected is alternating layers. One layer goes down like this, the next layer goes down at 90 degrees to it, next layer goes down like this, right? Back and forth. That means every single layer of infill, when the nozzle is passing over, an empty space, and it's looking down, so to speak, it's actually looking down 2 layer depths before it sees the next trace, so to speak. So you're filling 2 layers worth of volume. So if you set that extrusion width to 0.8, it thinks it's pushing down a bead that's 0.2 deep and 0.8 wide. Actually, it's going to end up more like 0.4 deep and 0.5 wide, and it's rounded.
Okay, I think I understand
Also,
that.
it makes a very, very strong bond at the intersections, where the pieces overlap. They really fuse to each other there, and it makes really wicked strong infill.
Okay. So it was partially right.
Yep.
Okay.
It is to be strong, but it's also specifically just for this infill type. It works with line, but not as well, because that's not quite as consistent as rectilinear. Okay, solid infill. Now, here's where stuff gets cool. To make solid infill a little bit more, shall we say, smooth and consistent, set that to 0.4.
Okay, let me go back to the video here. So let's set that for 0.4, okay.
And now you're going to set your top solid infill to 0.35. Now, I rarely recommend using an extrusion width that is thinner than the nozzle, but this is the one case where I can recommend it. Here's why. As you're laying lines back and forth, half of your boundaries, right, for the channel, so to speak, the virtual channel that you're laying your filament into, have been provided. You've got one to your right, say. Your left is empty, but to your right is filament. And as the nozzle goes and it feeds filament. It's feeding less than its nozzle diameter. That actually stretches down a little bit, and a little bit of the nozzle tip will overlap with that one, and it kind of blends the two and polishes them out, kind of like ironing without making a second pass, right?
Ooh.
So it's like I was doing ironing before it was cool. I was doing this like 4 years ago. I don't know, saw it on a forum somewhere. It works great. Now, this doesn't work great if you've got a layer height that's approaching this. Say you're using like a really high layer height, like something in the 0.3 millimeter range. This would probably not turn out well.
So, okay, let me throw this out. If I'm putting something with a 0.3 layer height, 0.2 layer height, and I left that on, that should be okay, correct?
Yep, 0.2 layer height, this will work awesome.
Okay. Well, I only print at 0.2 because I feel that 0.3 and 0.4 look like crap, and I try not to print at those layer heights.
Okay. Now, support material, you could set that to like 0.5 just to make it stiffer.
Let's just show everybody what I'm doing here so they can follow along.
Infill
Okay.
to perimeter overlap, set that to something really low, like 0 to 5% is what I recommend. Bridge flow ratio, now every printer is different, but often this is like 0.9 or 0.95 or something. It just depends.
So you like 0.5?
I guess, yeah, or 0.9
0.9, okay.
bridge flow ratio. So this means it's just feeding a little bit less in order to stretch the filament across like a tightrope.
Oh, okay.
Now this also has a lot to do with filament viscosity and some other things, so temperature and print speeds play a big role in this. So
Okay.
I don't mess with any of those there.
What about others?
None of those. I just
None
keep
of those I
those.
have to worry about. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, do you want me to go back to speed?
Yep. Now this is the last one we really need to tweak. So melt rate. Let's talk about melt rate. This is where it gets really important to talk about what your printer is capable of depositing continuously. So if your printer has, say, run-of-the-mill like 30-watt cartridge in a V6 or equivalent, like a Mark, 8 or 10 heat block, whatever. Generally, your flow rate with those hardware setups, when coupled to like a typical extruder, will be somewhere around 10 millimeters per second maximum before your extrusion efficiency starts to drop off. And that's due to a whole bunch of interesting physics principles that have to do with shear and plastics underneath the drive gear. I can talk more about that later. But
You're still being asked if you have a YouTube channel.
yeah, I know. Wish I did. No, I just stream with these guys.
No,
So-
let me just clarify something. I found him. No one else can have him.
Yeah, I belong here. But if I had one, it would be at Techie Fiddler.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff.
And
So,
don't also forget to follow John, too.
yeah, John, you have a Twitter
Sure.
and an Instagram, right? An Insta-Twit.
Yeah,
Plug yourself, John. I'm giving you the
I
option.
don't use anything.
You don't use anything.
You use
Ah.
Facebook.
I never use my Twitter for
But
anything.
you use Facebook.
I do. I'm on Facebook pretty heavily.
Oh. Okay, well, let's get back to... now that we're done the plugging episode.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so let's see here. So,
All right, so I brought up a calculator. So what we're going to do here is say if we have 10 millimeters cubed per second of maximum melt capacity through a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, that's difficult. If you swap that nozzle out for something wider, by the way, you can increase your maximum flow rate cap a little bit because you don't have to melt it as thoroughly. The inside can be a little bit cooler, and it'll still work. So let's start with here I'm gonna share my.
find the flow rate on my screen here.
I'm not gonna share my screen. I'm just gonna keep doing this. Okay, so let's say you've got a 10 cubic millimeter per second volumetric flow rate cap. That's just the soft limit you're set for yourself. You could push it a little more if you really tried, but so you're going to take your layer height times your extrusion width, which in this case is 0.2 times 0.45, and there's something we call the racetrack assumption. That's that when these extrusion widths are laid down, they don't come down square and flat. They've got a little bit of rounding to them, like a racetrack, a stadium cross-section, they call it. And slicer math, the toolpathing stuff, has a lot of calculations generally on how to deal with that. And every slicer has its own algorithm to deal with how much to actually deposit so you don't get over extrusion. Because remember, there are little air bubbles in the corners between those rounded traces. But here our traces have a cross-sectional area of approximately 0.09 square millimeters. Now, if we were to take our 10 millimeters per second, or 10 cubic millimeters per second, and divide it by our trace cross-sectional area, we get, what are the units? Millimeters per second. So 10 divided by 0.09, we get a theoretical maximum linear movement speed of 111 millimeters per second.
Okay.
So you should be able to handle up to about 100 millimeters per second of movement. Now, I wouldn't do that because your pressure is going to be pretty high.
Yeah,
but 60 millimeters per second should be fine.
So 60 millimeters per second is okay?
Yeah, you can keep that.
Would 75 be pushing it?
75 will be pushing a little bit, but it should be able to handle it.
Okay, so 70 would be probably a good recommendation?
Yeah, I would stick with 60. 60
so
is
60 is okay for the perimeters,
yeah.
okay.
Small perimeters, I would set that to something like, say, 20.
20, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought 15 was generous.
Yeah, well, it depends on how much cooling you have. External perimeters, you could set that to like 40. So it'll do a
percent
60
or
just 40 millimeters per second.
Okay.
So what that means is, remember he's doing 3 perimeters. The inner 2 will be at 60, and then the outer one will be down to 2/3 that, 40 millimeters per
Okay,
second.
infill.
Now, infill. Remember, this is where we really tweak that extrusion width. Remember, it's not actually going to end up being that wide, but in terms of what the printer thinks it's laying down, it thinks it's laying down something that's 0.2 high and 0.8 wide, when really it's more like 0.4 high and 0.4 wide or something. So we multiply out 0.2 times 0.8, and we get a 0.16 millimeter squared cross-sectional area, approximately. If we take that and we divide 10 by that,
we get 6.
62.5
62.
millimeters per second is your maximum rate before you really hit some issues. Now, that seems pretty slow. Like, what happened to 100 millimeters per second? Well, remember, you're pumping out a lot more filament for a given movement distance. So set that to like 60.
Okay.
You'll be almost maxing out your melt rate. Not quite, but almost. And hey, look, you're keeping it like the same as your perimeters. That's nice and consistent for the XY mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah, see, solid infill, yeah, like 20 or 40, somewhere in there. Should be fine, like say 40. What was it by default? 15?
15, yeah.
You could set it to probably 30.
30. Okay, Paul Taylor just came up with something out. A question for you?
Is the melt rate for PETG different from PLA? Yeah, PETG, in my experience, whatever it is with the viscosity, the stickiness, the amount of heat that it needs, the specific heat, the amount of heat energy that it needs in order to begin undergoing a phase transition, or a glass transition, I should say. Yeah, it tends to be a bit slower. Generally, I get away with about 3/4 the speed for PLA. So it's just kind of a rough rule of thumb.
So for PETG, you would go, instead of a perimeter of, say, 60, you drop that down to 50?
Yeah, like 50. 40 or 50, depending on how big a model I'm doing. Yeah, like 40 or 50 would be a good perimeters.
Yeah, that's what I usually do when I'm doing PETG also. I drop it from 60 down to 40. I'll also make my retraction even longer than normal.
Yeah, it's a little stringy. It tends to often like something.
Yeah.
And it is a little more flexible, so it compresses more in the tube. Remember that? You know,
yeah.
It bunches up. Okay.
And also, to add more fun to PETG, is that whenever you're printing with that stuff, just remember stringing is going to happen. I've not had a print yet that I've not had stringing happening.
With linear advance and properly tuned retractions, you can sometimes tune it out, but it is more finicky than with other filaments.
Yeah.
It's just so sticky.
Oh, it is. It's
Okay.
sub mad. I just saw that comment coming from TK 3D Prints. I guess he's liking what we're talking about.
Top solid infill, 30 is good. Support material, I would do like 50 here. You don't
Really?
want
Only
to
50?
blaze through it. Yeah, you could do 60 if you're pretty confident. But
Okay.
support material interface, also like 50.
50%?
Yeah, because remember that's being removed from the part, so it doesn't need to look super duper clean. Yeah. Bridges now, or no, not 50%. I mean 50 millimeters per second.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry. Bridges. This is again one of the things that like total not best practice. Bad idea. They have it blazing along at 60 millimeters per second. Generally, you can bridge way better if you're going slow. But you don't want to run into this issue where, say, a printer doesn't have linear advance. You're zipping along, and you hit a bridge on a perimeter, and it suddenly slows down. You have back pressure in your tube, and it's going to ooze all over, and your bridge is going to droop. Now, if you have linear advance, that's not going to be an issue. It will tune that out. But bridges, you can do like 20.
20, okay.
Yep. Gap fill, also 20 is often fine.
Okay. Cool.
Travel. I like setting this as high as you can reasonably handle. My printers run, depending on how well tuned they are mechanically, 200 to 250. And if they're running 32-bit, if it's like a Delta, 500.
They're 8-bit.
Yeah. If it's a Core XY, yeah, I set that to like 200.
Is that for 200? Okay.
Yeah. If it's a Core XY, it doesn't like the backspace.
Ron, are you setting this up for your which printer?
This is going to be going for the Ender 3.
Oh, yeah, you should be fine with 200 then.
Yeah.
For a Core XY,
my CR10
I've gone as high as like 1,000. But
what are you saying for your CR10? You use that?
CR10, I had to go down to 150.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Just because you've got so much more mass to move around and the motors are being driven harder.
Yeah.
First layer speed. Now, this is totally up to you, and it totally depends on whatever you're using as a bed surface. If you're using glass and hairspray or glue stick, or you like PEI, or you use some other kind of bed fixative like 3D gloop, or maybe you're doing, I mean, who knows? There are a million things out there. That you're going to have to tune yourself. Your first layer speed is something
I usually put it to half of what my perimeter is, depending, not, if it's glue, if it's on a flexible bed, it doesn't matter. I usually keep it at half the speed of what I print out.
Sure. So like 25 or 30, right?
Yeah. Usually I keep
I
it
think I
at
do 25 on everything.
25.
Really?
25 is good.
Huh.
Yeah.
I always like the first layer to go down nicely, but I always go for 30. But if you guys are saying 25 is a better one, I'll go drop it down a little bit. I always thought it was always supposed to be the half.
Your mileage may vary, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay, the rest of that I leave, except for max volumetric speed. You could put in like 10. Notice that's in millimeters cubed per second. Now, the rest of that, don't bother messing with that.
Okay. And max print speed 80 is okay?
You could set that to like 80 or 100 or whatever. That's not really going to come into play unless some other parameters are going to. You can put that in there just so it knows what you're dealing with. Okay, that's all the print settings. Now I would hit save, and it's gonna ask you for a name for this.
Oh, where do I?
The save button is right next to the I would call it. Yeah, Daniel Magic. Or sometimes I name it for the printer that I'm intending it for. Like, you set the extrusion widths with the Ender's hardware in mind. You set the travel speed with the Ender in mind. Like, I'll name it like Ender 0.2 for the 0.2 millimeter layer height one that goes on the Ender.
Yeah, I'm just going to call it Daniel's Magic Ender 3.
Hey, Ron, I would maybe lock it on your screen right now because it's flickering a lot between you and Daniel.
I have it locked right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so you guys don't see it, but I'm watching what I'm seeing right now, and I've been passing it back to Daniel when Daniel starts talking because, just to keep everybody interested in Daniel because Daniel's the star here, not me.
Now, you've got filament settings and printer settings. So let's go to printer settings first. Now, these are the settings that like directly deal with your hardware.
We are in printer settings.
No, this is print settings. These are the ones that deal with the behavior of how you want this thing to be toolpathed.
Okay, well, I just clicked on print settings. It seems that we're in it.
Printer settings off to the right.
Oh, printer settings. Oh, printer settings.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this is like the hardware stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, this is where you set stuff like what's your bed shape. You know, it's got to know what your printer is like. The Ender 3 is what, 200 cubed?
It's 220 by 220 according to the information, but the bed size is 235 by 235. So
go into bed shape there. Yep. Or up the set. Yep. And this is nifty. It lets you change it between like circular, like if it's a delta or a polar or something.
Yep.
And here, yeah, 220 by 220. Or yeah, I would set that to 230 by 230 for the Ender 3 then.
Yeah, okay, so people are saying the Ender 3 can be pushed to 235 by 235.
Okay. And yeah, if you've got your end stops backed all the way to the edges, yeah, go ahead and set that to 235 by 235 if you can.
Okay. There we go.
Yep.
Now, origins, do I need to put anything for that?
Nope, keep that. I like it where that is. That means the origin is going to be in your bottom left.
Okay.
Your nearest left hand. And that's logically where it should be. Max print height, set that to 250.
Right.
Z offset, don't mess with that for now.
Okay.
Generally, I like dealing with that sort of thing in the firmware, but sometimes you can do that here. Now, this is neat. It has repetitive host integration where you can have it automatically send the G-code off to a Octoprint image.
Yeah.
So you can have Octoprint on your network and it can just send that off to it. So if you're running a print farm, that's pretty handy.
I use that all the time. Like that is my thing.
Really? You like to use the print farm, huh? Octoprint.
Yeah. All my printers have Octoprint and I slice it, I hit send right to printer. I even say start printing right after it's uploaded. It's great.
So he just hit slice and go and it sends it off and it starts printing automatically.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I am personally a person that is not a big fan of, and I'll tell you my reasons for Octoprint. Let me just stop sharing this for a second and I'll explain to you. The problem with Octoprint I have right now is that I've had Octoprint at the worst times just all of a sudden stop printing everything. Get it going, it'll start printing, and then all of a sudden halfway through the print, turns itself off and doesn't do any more printing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yet I've been told now that they fixed that problem, but still I'm a little hesitant on using it. Putting in my profiles.
Yeah, I run 5 of them. I never have a failed print from Octoprint on 5 printers.
Yeah, that's pretty good for reliability.
Yeah, no, I use a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi 3B is what I got it here.
Yeah, that does sound like it might be a hardware issue. I know I'd reflash it or reimage it. Sorry.
I have done that, and it's
would be a bad power supply.
Does it again?
Keeps doing it.
Yeah. So
make sure you're using a 2 amp or better power supply.
I actually emailed them, and they did say that there were some problems with the Ender, but I think they fixed that. You know.
Maybe it has to do with the USB communications chip in it.
Maybe. But I wasn't the only one that was actually having that issue. They said in 5 it was fixed, but I still haven't chanced it on 15. I hear the new one, 16, fixes a lot of issues a lot of people were complaining about.
It's the damn Creality boards, man.
Oh, they're a horrible board. Well, like I said, I want to move it over to MK Gen L.
The Gen L is a pretty decent board. People rip on MKS for having shall we say, creative way of looking at the open source.
Yeah, I love how Octoprint tells you.
But their hardware is nice.
Do you know that Octoprint put in something else? And this really bugged me. Plugged in the Ender 3 and it said my Ender 3 will catch on fire anytime soon.
Yeah.
In Octoprint, it said your Ender 3 will catch on fire.
Yeah.
Updated
The developers don't like ANETs. either. The developer has gone on several very amusing and educational rants on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah,
But A-nets are
I
the
agree with that
best.
though.
They're the ones that you take to a
At burning your
campfire
house
when you
down.
can't get a fire started, you know? Sorry, guys, a little A-net jokes. A-net, the fire starter, you know? Like the Mentos commercial. Have someone, you know, if someone is an artist out there, hey, take a roll of Mentos, label it A-net, the fire starter, bring them to
The fire
Earth.
maker.
You know, you just bring them to Earth. I can guarantee you, people will buy it up just for that thing. A-net A8, the fire starter. Here we go. Print and play. Good old friend James. Basically across the street and, well, more like 6 to 7 hours away. So I replaced my board on my CR10 with, and the X5 with Gen Ls. I mean, basically they're just ramps combined with Adreno, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now here's the other thing. I've heard of people putting duet boards on their Ender 3. Is that a little bit much, do you think?
That's a little overkill. It's like the price of the whole printer, man.
Yeah, I thought so. I was thinking that too, but the frame in the Ender 3 is pretty damn good.
Yeah, but the motion components aren't great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the frame is solid for the size, but the motion components could be better.
Oh, well.
And the extrusion system. Now,
Yeah.
if you had an upgraded extrusion system and it was all, you know, tight and working well, maybe it would be useful. But generally, where you see 32-bit being useful is on like Core XYs, deltas, high-speed gantries, that sort of stuff.
Now, with the way that it's now going with Marlin, they're moving all the way to 2.0.
Yep, and that works on a lot more boards, sort of a fundamental code restructuring. So now that'll be able to work on some of the 32-bit boards.
Yeah, I'm running it on a few of mine now.
Yeah. I'm looking at...
I'm going to put it on that Delta.
Well,
Yeah,
like I said, bring the Delta to Earth and we'll get
that.
We'll get that Delta working for you.
Well, apparently they got the GTEC GTM 32 board, the one that's based on STM. They've got added to Marlin 2.0. It's just missing a few things. I think SD card doesn't work and EEPROM doesn't work. Other than that, everything else is up and running. So
that's cool.
That might be an option.
That's good. Yeah, that chip has a nice amount of processing power.
Yeah, we got another person asking in the chat. Daniel, what would be the best sub 1K printer be?
I don't know. I would build it myself. I wouldn't buy any.
That one. It's this one right here.
Prusa?
Your
yeah,
Prusa?
You've had pretty good luck with that.
Me, I'm going to say a CR10, personally myself. Not the CR10 basic. I'm talking like the CR10S before they brought out the other CR10S Pro. That's been my
So I have a CR10S and I have the Prusa, and I would go with that Prusa every day of the week for sure.
I would actually do a Prusa Mark IIS over a Mark III.
I bought my Prusa Mark IIS with over 100 days of printing already on it, and it has probably put on another 30 now, and it has broken down 0 times while I've had to fix every single one of these other printers at least once in the time I've owned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my CR10 was working great. It's just I wanted more power out of that CR10. I mean, I got a freaking, you know, I got the bed size. I might as well put a E3D on there, V6, and just have it go and pump out plastic. That's my thoughts, but, you know, I'm dealing with issues right now, which I can easily fix. But for a first person, I would say, yeah, go with a Prusa MK3, Ender 3. The Ender 3 is a workhorse. Let's just put it this way. I've had no issues with my Ender 3 except for just now because I was having a Bowden issue. I pulled out the Bowden tube, put the new Bowden tube in there. I got my new bed, put the new flex bed on there, and I just went, and then all hell broke loose. So, And that was after a couple of days leaving my printer not running, which is odd.
This is true. Good quality linear bearings do tend to wear a lot slower than rollers, especially if you have a good maintenance schedule and you keep them lubricated and clean.
Linear rails would be nice to put on my ender.
Yeah, that's quite an upgrade.
Yeah.
The other thing about that is if you have a kit versus bought and assembled.
I say buy the kit.
I say buy the kit.
Yeah.
I would just buy it myself because then I know that it's put together, tight according to my standards. I can make sure that all the parts are good as I'm putting it together. I can check that it's square. I can go absolutely OCD on its ass. Sorry, can I say that on the air?
Yes, you can.
And just make sure that it's really well built. So.
Well, Paul
it
Taylor,
also demystifies it too, right? Like every inch of it, every part of the printer at that point. How it all works, how it all went together. It really does give you a better understanding of what you're working with.
Yes, definitely.
I think the other guys that have built better clones of the Prusa have been actually Tom has already done it. Our friend Chris Riley, who hopefully is still in chat, he's done it. He did a good video. He calls his the log, which is kind of funny because it's made out of wood. Log. It's made out of wood. Ren Stimpy joke. Sorry, maybe went over your heads. But yeah. But anyways, we got way off topic again.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Show, I swear.
Why do you invite me to this thing?
I don't know why I invite you. I just think you're entertaining. That's all it is. It has to be that. Yeah, Tom did a Prusa clone, as did Chris at Chris's Basement. Chris posted a full tutorial. He has clones working right now, down to the 9-point skew check. That is true.
My buddy Shane Fuga, he just did a whole MK3 clone. He did like the entire MK3, all clone parts, which is pretty cool.
Come on, I saying share. There we go. Okay, back on topic. Okay, so is there anything else that we need to set up here?
Yes. 1 second.
Let me guess, they're all adding you to Twitter, aren't they?
Some are. Okay, so take a look down there. Enable variable layer height feature. That stuff is cool. Keep that enabled. You want to tweak with that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really cool. Volumetric key from retraction. None of that
great.
on this.
Okay. Next one. Custom G-code.
Okay. Now, if you've got, like, say you do a prime line, you're not so much a fan of skirts, brims, that sort of stuff, you can throw the prime line G-code there.
Okay. And that's all I would add, I guess, eh?
Yeah.
Because if I had also a like a TH3D's probe, I would guess I would add that information to this also, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of that. Yeah, if you've got auto level, you do that. Here's something. NG code. Do you have on the ender? Does the bed home to the back or the front? Like, is the end stop on the front or the back?
It's on the back.
So when it homes, the bed goes to the rear of the machine, so the nozzle is moving to the front of the bed, essentially?
That's correct.
Okay. You could throw in another line here. So it slides the print forward to you when it's done.
Okay.
Yeah, right there it go G0. Let's make it capital.
Sorry. G0.
G0. Y230.
Yeah, Y230. Not quite 235. Go like 230.
Sorry, 250. Yeah,
230. And after that, quick throw. Let's see if we want to make it do that at 100 millimeters per second. That would be F6000. Make that capital as well.
Okay.
That's 600. You want another 0 in there. And then space, semicolon, space. Semicolon or semicolon? Semicolon to make it a comment.
Sorry about that.
And then just as a count, so you know, I would say like sticks bed out or presents finished print. Yeah, presents finished print or
I just put bed to front.
Bed to front. Yep. And then home x-axis. Disable motors. There you go. Yep. That's good.
You can play a tune through the beeper with M300, he's saying.
Yep. Yeah, you can, the parameters can set like pitches, so you have a whole bunch of those strung together, and you can have little do-do-do-do-do-do, please.
Yeah. Let's just put it this way, print and play, James. I'll be there. Daniel will be there. 90% of the people in the chat have already said they're going to be there, so yeah, we're all going to have a lot of people there.
It's going to be a good time. We should get a group picture over there.
Yeah, we should get everybody together and just snap one selfie and just have us all goofing off, have us all trying to kill each other or something like that behind a table. You know, I can pick up an ender, throw it like I'm aiming for your head.
Take that. Go to machine limits. The next one down on that left. Yeah. Okay. So notice these are the things for the Prusa. They're set pretty aggressively for that even.
Oh yeah.
Really, maximum feed rate X should be like 250. For you, set it to like 200.
Which one?
Maximum feed rate X. Yep.
Set for 200?
200. Yeah. Yeah, same as silent.
Okay.
Maximum feed rate for Y. Yeah, also 200.
Yeah, I was going to say
maximum feed rate for Z.
12?
Yeah, let's use an 8
remember, it's
millimeter lead
MK8
screw.
is the nozzle I'm using.
Yeah, I would set that to like 8.
8? Really?
1 revolution per second. Or unless you can go to your firmware and find out what it actually is, you can pick a match.
Yeah.
Maximum feed rate in E, I think that's too fast to set that to like 100.
Well, all I know is that we're probably going to be messing around with the under 3 anyway, so you'll be able to fix all of this.
Here, I'll help you. Here we can set some of the parameters that will be used in the ender as well. Knowing what I know about its hardware, set that maximum acceleration X to 2,000 millimeters per second squared. Set both X and Y, all of that to 2,000. All 4 of those.
Even Z?
No, set that to 500 is fine.
E?
Keep that high. Now go up to the side. The silent column.
Okay, yeah, silent,
yeah.
Okay.
Make those also 2,000, 2,000, 500.
2,000.
All right. See you later, print and play.
2,000 and 1,000. You said
500.
500?
Maximum acceleration E, also 10,000.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see you later, James. See you at Earth. Or Murph, I should say.
Maximum acceleration when extruding, also 2,000.
So this for 2,000?
For both columns. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Maximum acceleration when retracting, also 2,000. Also 2,000. Jerk is a bit high. I would set that to 8.
An 8?
Also 8. And also 8. Also
Oops.
8.
Yeah, I know.
For those to 8.
Fixing that.
Maximum jerk in Z can be raised. You can do like 0.5 there.
0.5 here
Interesting.
too?
Notice how they have that higher in the other column? Yeah. And maximum jerk on E, that can be faster. That can be like 5.
Just 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Extruder 1. Now, last couple things to set in the hardware. Nozzle diameter is correct. Air height limits, do 0.08.
2.08? Really?
No, 0.08.
Oh. Okay.
Retraction. Do you remember what it is currently? It's probably something like 3.5 or something.
Retraction. Well, that's one way to find out. Let's go open up a print. Let's do the... Let's open up Cura. As you guys can see, this is my main front desk, so yeah, it's a mess. Yes, you are seeing games on there. Yes, I do play video games, so there. Now, if any of you guys play any video games, let me know. I'd like to know, honestly. Now I'm waiting for Cura to show me which screen is going to pop up on. It's like my Windows. Oh, where did Kira go? Where can it be? There it is. Whomp. Okay, here's Kira. Let's have a look at the retractions. Retraction distance is at 5, and the speed is at 40.
Yeah, it seems a little odd. All right, go back to slice 3R. Let's try 4 millimeters, or 4 millimeters and 50 millimeters per second.
Okay, so you want to change that to 50?
Yep.
And we change that. Oh, whoa.
Printer settings.
Why did it go there?
I don't know.
Did it not like?
You're in Filament right now.
Oh, sorry.
No. Extrude the line. Yep. Set that length to 4. No, that's the de-retraction speed. Length is up at the top.
Oh, right there, length. Oh, sorry.
De-retraction speed, try like 40 for that.
In here?
Yeah, right there, try 40. This is an interesting thing about these filaments. Often they tend to shear thicken. So when you pull them back really fast and they're under higher shear, they'll tend to stick together pretty well. But they stretch a little bit during the travel, right? And if you want to cram it back in together and have it assume its original shape, you can have the de-retraction be a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Picture length at restart 0, minimum travel over retraction. You can set that to like 1 actually. Retract on layer change, yes. Retract on layer changes. Do not wipe while retracting.
Okay.
Alright, looks good. Hit save, and save that as Ender 3. Pop top. That's a tough question. As much as I'd like you to stay, you know what the answer probably should be.
Hey guys, my wife is burning me to have me give her attention. Yeah. So my problem is to
there is a correct answer to this question.
Or go with her. What should I do? Well, it's obvious. Happy wife, happy life. That should tell you your answer right there. Of course you stay with us. No, I'm just kidding.
I got myself in trouble today, so I'm here.
Yeah.
I stay here too.
You're in the doghouse? Damn.
Nah.
Oh, okay. I like that. Tell her to wait a minute.
Yeah, because that'll go over real well.
Yeah.
They like that. They like to be told to wait.
Yeah. Have a good one, Papa Top. Thanks for coming in.
You should try shushing at the same time. That always goes over well too.
I see no possible way this could backfire. No possible way.
Okay, I just have to stop the video here because I got to put in my own 2 cents. Remember, guys, when you're married, you have this stupid thing on your finger. It means something. It means you have to obey. I had a girlfriend. I almost got married, so I know exactly what that means. It means entrapment. You're trapped for life. No escape. And I say that jokingly, of course. Yeah, go tell her to go online and spend your money. You're busy.
Yeah. Hey, that actually might work for some people.
Yeah.
Not for mine. I'm not married. Just girlfriend.
No, if I got married and had a girlfriend, yeah, I'd be broke. If I let her do that.
Okay, let's go back to the slicer there.
You're engaged for 13 years, TK?
That's a long time.
Oh, jeez,
I wouldn't
dude.
be able to wait that long.
If I had to get married, I would probably get married right away. You know, like within a year if I met the right girl.
I would say a year, probably for me too.
Yeah. So, okay, looking at everything here, is there anything else that we need to change? Let me go back.
Just filament now. So filament, these you can make profiles for every type of filament you have. This is where you set things like temperature, the diameter,
okay,
even the color you want it to preview as when it's sliced. You can set so much stuff. So let's go up to filament.
Okay, filament. I like the green.
What color are you going to use? You like that?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
What diameter is it? This is where you grab a caliper,
1.75.
zero it, check around, check the ellipsivity. Sometimes you've got some that's like 1.75 in one dimension, but the other is a little like 1.73. You would average it and say, oh, it's 1.74.
Yeah. I've checked mine a couple times. It comes out to 1.75.
And start with an extrusion multiplier of 1. Sometimes you'll need to tweak that like 2, 3, 4% in either direction. Depends. Density and cost, you can use those if you want to know what the part is going to weigh and cost. If you have a print farm, those can be really important. Temperatures. Did you have those at 200? And
yep.
What, like 50? Was your bed at 50?
Bed's 55? At 60.
60? Okay, then just leave that. Sometimes I like having the first layer a little warmer, like an extra 5 degrees or something.
Cooling. Enable auto cooling.
Yep.
So I have. Is that okay to have auto cooling on?
Yeah, but actually, I would just keep fan always on.
Really?
Click that, but it doesn't mean always.
Oh, okay.
You see, you can disable it for the first couple. I disable it for the first 2, because the first one is directly coupled to the bed. You want it to melt in real slow. The second one is directly coupled to that layer, so I let it have that. But on the third layer, it turns on.
Yeah.
Fan speed, I would just set it to 35 is probably not enough. If this is PLA, then you're probably going to want it at like 90 to 100% most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Just set it to 100.
I set it for 100, okay. I actually, you know what? On the Ender 3, though, I was told don't set it for 100 because I have that stupid pet fang idea. I was told actually only set it for 25 because anything faster and the print can be blown off by the...
Oh, really?
By the
that's just bad nozzle design. Yeah, you could get better airflow and not have to deal with that. Well, I don't know, maybe set to like 50% or whatever. Whatever fan speed you can get away with, and not trigger thermal runaway because it's
that's what
saturated.
I was told. At 100 it can trigger the runaway on my printer, and someone said he's done it at 25. Anything higher than 25 triggers runaway.
Yikes! You have a thermal sock?
Yeah, I have a thermal sock on it too. Yeah,
then you can get away with higher than 25.
I should be able to, but it seems like it doesn't want to let me do that.
Try 50.
Try 50
for all the time. Bridges fan speed and fan speed, just like 50-50.
Okay. What about disable fan for the first?
I do for the first 2.
First 2, actually.
Sometimes you've got like a little bit of an overhang starting on that third layer. Yeah, it can be useful to have.
Here's a question: when printing PETG, do you turn your fans on or off?
Depends on the model and depends on what it's being used for. If it absolutely needs to be just ridiculously strong, especially in interlayer adhesion, I don't use a layer fan. I slow it way down.
Yeah, 'cause I've been finding that I've been printing in PETG and I turn the fans right off. I find if I leave the fans on, the fans are I don't know what causes it, but it causes me more problems than good. I always find my prints go funny when I leave the fan on.
Yeah, you get more stringing and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I'm
so
using
try
a dual
50%,
2015
50%.
fans, yeah. I'm using the 50-20 fans. Does that make a big difference, son?
50-20 or 50-15?
Sorry, 50-15 on the
Oh, okay, I was like
CR10.
50-20. That's nice. Yeah. No. Yeah, set both of those to 50%.
Okay. So on the CR10, you would recommend 50% and see if I can get it. Okay.
If you've got pet pan.
Yeah. But on the Ender 3, it just has regular fans, so that's
100% for the Ender.
Yeah.
Okay, now go down to advanced.
Okay.
Filament type. Yeah, this
PLA.
is just for kind of housekeeping purposes. PLA.
Yeah.
It's not soluble. Max volumetric speed. Set that to like 10. That's not really going to matter here. But now the rest of the stuff here is for MMUs. So that doesn't really apply. Custom G code. This can be handy for real power users, but I rarely use it. This is like if you've got a filament that's extra stringy and you want to throw in an extra purge at the beginning.
Okay.
Sometimes you might have a special one with flexible filament.
Okay. So you want me to save this?
Yep. And save this as, what's the brand of PLA that you're using? Is it filaments.ca PLA? Or you could even throw the color in if you want.
Oh, it's all their PLA. That filaments.ca just works. Anytime I would have to change it, I would definitely go in here and change it. And that's about it, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. For configuring it, if you wanted to use slicer as your slicer, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So now this should be awesome. Oddsball. There are a couple good ones. There's Idea Maker. Raise 3D has one that might be this Slice 3R is good. There's also Kiss Slicer is really powerful. Path.io for now is free because it's in beta. Might be paid later. There's also Craft Maker. I haven't tried that one recently.
Yeah, there's Idea Maker. There is Path.io. There's the reason that I went this way to show you guys Slicer PE is just so you guys get an understanding that sure it's for Prusa, but you can use it for any printer out there. That was the main reason for doing this. So you guys can take your Cura and try other ones to use. Yeah, Craftware is another one.
Craftware, that's it.
Yeah. But let's face it, Cura's gotten long in the tooth, and a lot of people aren't happy with what we're seeing, and I just want to put this out for you guys, so you guys have an idea that there are other slicers out there in the market. Mm-hmm. I think we just lost.
If people want to get their hands on this, yeah, he'll be back. If people want to get their hands on these profiles, you can export these as a bundle. Go up, show your screen again. There's a nifty way to do this.
Okay, I just closed it. Hang on.
All right.
Let me go reopen it. And everybody, if you want these, all you have to do is just email me and let me know. Oh, it says just a new one just got released. Huh. Interesting.
But a new version of it?
Yeah, it just got released just a few minutes ago. Interesting.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay. Okay, we got my screen back on. What do I need to do?
You go up to File.
Yep.
Export Config Bundle. Let's load config.
Okay, so this just makes the whole...
Not that.
Okay.
You want export.
I thought it said export.
You were one away.
Export config bundle, okay.
So this will put everything out. all of these profiles that you have here that you're currently using. Turns them into one big old .ini file. The other thing that you could do is export them one at a time instead of a bundle. If somebody just wants, like, oh, I want your print settings. That's the magic with the extrusion widths being the way they are, you know. And then obviously they'll need their own printer settings, one, because everybody's machine is different, and they'll have their own filament settings because everybody's filament is different. But the print settings are what they want. You could export just that.
Okay. Well, guys, if you're interested in getting that Daniel's Magic Juice for your Ender 3, you can always hit us up on our email at gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy enough to export this out to you guys. So maybe we'll put it on Dropbox so you guys can have access to it, and put it on your own Dropbox. How's that sound to everybody? So I'm going to say this is Daniel's Ender 3. Okay, it's saved. So anybody needs it, let me know, and I'll be more than happy enough to put it out there for you guys. Daniel, anything else that people should keep aware of that when it comes to slicers?
A lot of your print quality is being limited by generally crappy motion settings on the board. Speaking as somebody who has done a lot of experiments with motion control and the hardware and the settings that interface well with each other. Generally speaking, the settings that come on a lot of these boards from the factory are not very well suited to the machines that they're supposed to drive. Sometimes they're pretty good, but like the CR10, okay, first of all, their maximum access speeds were 500 millimeters per second. The board has a step rate limit that won't even let it hit that. Like, it can't process that many step commands per second. It's not possible for the board to even pull that off. So, like, why is that there? And then they'd have their extruders speed limit set to like 20 or 25 millimeters per second. And meanwhile, people are trying to do retractions at like 40 or 50 or 60, and like your board is just total mismatch. You got to have that. So that's a big thing. Also, jerk and acceleration. Usually, jerk is too aggressive, and accelerations are low to counteract that. You can lower your print times if you lower your jerk a bit by raising your accelerations. That way, you're spreading out the cornering force over a longer period of time instead of just a jerk impulse right at the corner. It's spreading it over an acceleration period. So you can have lower overall average forces and get less rigging with the same amount of print time, or less. So that's also a factor there. So yeah, if you have layer shifts on an Ender 3, that can be partly due to poorly set reference voltages on the stepper drivers, but often that's due to that jerk being a little bit too aggressive. So the current needed is more than is being supplied. It hits a corner, and if you want it to corner at a certain jerk speed, you have to slam it with a lot of current, and you're just not meeting that, so it skips steps. You know.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just getting some messaging here. So,
anybody else have questions about that?
And it goes quiet. Oh, he's back again. He made it.
I'm back.
Yay.
You guys need a distraction?
Yeah, we do. But yeah, so guys, if there's anything else that you want to ask Daniel before we call it a night. Okay, it says default in the Ender firmware is at 20.
What is
That
default
look
setting?
healthy.
Nothing should be default to 20. Like steps per millimeter, max velocity, jerk velocity. There, no variables in the Ender should be 20. That's really high for jerk, and that's really low for maximum speed on E. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a channel, but no, I just pop in here from time to time. But you guys can always tweet at me. Follow me on Instagram. Maybe friend me on Facebook if you want. Although,
Yeah, Daniel's channel is basically my channel.
yeah, I just pop on here and give hardware and software and firmware and mushware advice. Yeah, jerk is 20. Yeah.
Yeah, jerk should not be at 20. Jerk should be at least what?
Yeah. John, do you have a channel?
Nope. I keep thinking about doing it, and then I go, what would I talk about?
Probably the same stuff you talk
maybe.
about here.
Talk about Geek Tech.
Yeah. One of these days.
I mean, you got the Geek Tech unofficial channels, your channel on Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook group.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just run that. You know. I guess I don't really own it. Do I? How does that work?
I don't know. Yeah, 5 jerk is good for that.
You run it, so. Speaking of which, someone asked about the Basara direct drive mod. I have not done it myself on the Ender 3. I want my Ender 3 to work before I even attempt that. And I am going to an all-metal extruder for the Ender 3 before I even attempt that.
Here's the deal with that. If you have a moving bed printer, like bed flinger, that's the size of the CR10, the bed is so much heavier, like, it makes no sense to have the x-axis be Bowden.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want it to be remotely inertially isotropic, just make it a direct drive, and now they weigh about the same-ish. Now, for the Ender, unfortunately, it works in the other direction. If you make a direct drive, that's going to be a little heavier than the y-axis. So, you know, but it does give you some other advantages. So go ahead and do that. If you do that, I would set jerk to, about 5. 5 to 8 should be okay. You might get a little ringing at 8. 5, 6, 7 is good. Acceleration 200. That'd be pretty low. You can probably manage 1,000 to 1,500. Yeah. Now, if you've got a direct drive, I would use, without exception, a fully guided filament path. Now that's sometimes called reverse Bowden. You guys have seen that, right? Where you run a Bowden tube from the reverse of the extruder to somewhere on the frame and fix it there by the spool.
Yep.
That way, no matter where your hot end moves around, the length of the filament going from the spool to your drive gear stays the same the whole time. That way, you never get filament starvation from your head moving back and forth and then zipping off to the side while feeding, and then it jerks and the spool's rotational inertia tugs, and then it can cause issues with stripping the filament,
thing to do with all
bites, whatever.
Your old white PTFE tubes.
Yeah, because those have a little more clearance than the Capricorn.
I have a bunch laying around now.
So keep an eye on those, and whenever you have a direct out printer, just throw one of those in between your spool and your hot end. Now the other thing about that is, actually, some printers use really oversized tubes. Like, I was working on a Stratasys. Actually, this is before it was Stratasys. This is a Dimension. They are using 1.75 millimeter filament, and their guide tubes were like 4 millimeters ID. Like, thick wall, they were like 8 millimeters OD. So they were just rattling around there with tons of room. That way there's no way for them to bind, It doesn't hurt anything, really. Although it can jerk a little bit if your bend radius really changes all of a sudden. Now, if you're doing a Bowden, you're actually driving Bowden, and your drive gear is pushing through the Bowden tube. Yeah, keep it as short as possible. You want the least mechanical slop in the system that you can get. So not only cut it short, use good tubing, but also shim your collets, your couplers, so that they don't rattle, because you don't want your tube rolling in and out there. Now on the other end of things, like if you're doing a reverse Bowden, you know, a fully constrained filament guide path, you've got a direct drive extruder. It doesn't really matter. The amount of drag that a little bit extra tube adds is like nothing. Just make sure that it's short enough to stay out of the way and not droop onto something that's moving, you know, because that'd be a good way to break a wire or something.
So, Country retweeted something that's kind of interesting here, guys.
What you got?
It's T-minus 18 days until MRRF.
Oh, wow. Is it that soon?
It is that soon. Man, that's crazy.
So, guys, in 18 days, I hope to meet you all down at Earth. Once again, you can find us, well, using the web, well, you guys know where to find me anyways, here. But if you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. Get subscribed, join the family. We're all a bunch of great guys. We have the Facebook group over at Canadian Maker Project. That's at Facebook. Just look us up. Daniel's in there. John's in there. So if you guys have a question for them, they can answer it.
Yeah, we can answer a lot of technical questions. Or if you just want clarification for like the stuff we talked about, or hey, you know, who's going to be at MRRF roll call, whatever, post it in there.
Yeah, we do read it. Trust us. So once again, Daniel, where can they find you once again for the great many of people who may have missed it the first 10 times?
There, typed it out. At Techie Fiddler is my username.
Techie Fiddler everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, MRRF. It's here. Why don't you go? Here,
look up our video. There's a video actually on MRRF that I put out. It was our first video. Yeah. You can find that in our channel too.
Yeah, Midwest Rep Festival.
And see what it's all about.
It's the biggest 3D printer nerd convention so far. It's pretty awesome.
Nerd is putting it lightly.
Yeah, I have never seen so much concentrated IQ.
Oh man, it's a fest. It's a
smart
treat.
People there.
And John's at John Equox on Twitter, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know
Where'd you get the Quicks part of that, by the way? I'm just curious.
I mean, from when I was really, really young. I mean, literally, I've been using it since I was like 14.
Man, I remember Quicks. Used to be wait a minute, no, I'm thinking of the old game QIX. Sorry, never mind.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, we're getting off topic again. Once again, it's 11 o'clock, so I hate to call this end, but we want to thank everyone for watching once again. If you need any information, remember, rewatch the video, comment. Hopefully you guys have hit subscribe. Hopefully you guys have hit the thumbs up button, because we all love thumbs up, don't we?
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, so come on, guys, make sure the thumbs are up. And we'll see you all next month, right here at CMP Sunday Night Talk. Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Later.